Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today I once again had the opportunity to sit down with some of the guys behind Arms Trade Tycoon, and today we mainly talked about stuff like logistics and support and some of the new buildings that are on offer and how they're going to work. There's a lot of the nitty-gritty stats stuff in here, so things like, a lot of people who played some of the old Tycoon games back in the day really enjoy, getting stuck into what is the best way of efficiently doing stuff. And also, there are some little teasers in here when it comes to the Kickstarter that they're going to do, and also some extra information on how, generally you can get involved. Something that they are looking at, especially when it comes to this section of the game, they're looking for feedback on this specific part. So if you do have any feedback, make sure to head over to their Discord, which I'll leave a link in a pinned comment down below, so you can hit it up. And also, if you want to leave some feedback in the comments section of this video, go ahead and I'll make sure to forward it for you. So, as always, hope you enjoy the chat. See you guys later.
So what we wanted to show you today is maybe not as fancy as what we showed last time. Not, the building tanks and designing the different components. But instead, we wanted to focus on these three buildings. This is the buildings that contain sort of most of the Tycoon part of the game. And also, go out to the world window and discuss a bit more what kind of, negotiation options are available to the player. But first disclaimer that, the Tycoon part of the game, you can really build very deep if you want to, or you can sort of give a light version and so on. So what we'll show you today is it's a base version, and it will be really great to get the feedback from your subscribers, and we hope for even more feedback when the demo comes out, because we need to sort of understand how deep we want to go there and how much we want to invest both time and energy in that. All right, with that being said, let's jump to this building. So we go to the warehouse, and here we are. So the warehouse generally has three different functions. The first one, that is the first two, actually they're connected to tanks directly, and it's both the storage and logistics. This is how you deliver the tanks to your customers. And the second or the third option is connected to the raw resources, how you how you replenish your stock of the raw resources. So if we go to here, we can see the following. Currently we have two models that we are actively selling, and you can see a short summary of how many tanks are in the stock, how many we have sign up to sell. So we have, let's say for Mark 1, we have a total of 2 contracts of 1480 units with the corresponding deadlines. And for Mark 5, we have 50 units split between Britain and US. If you want to check a bit more on the details of each contract, you can have it here. So you see the attributes of the tank that you sold. You see the summary of the contract. That's the price, how many units that you get. In this case, you get just cash, not barter, not raw resources, or anything else. And you have the overall summary of the contract. And then it's also from this actually window that you can jump directly and decide on the logistics. And this is one of the typical places where you can really build more, introduce more details if one wants to. So the way it works now is that you have a number of contractors, the companies that are delivering to this particular country. And this list will not be, fixed. It will be changing with time. So you will have, depending on your reputation with the host country, you will have new companies appearing with better conditions, better deals. But generally, all the companies, they come in different flavors. There are 5 parameters that differentiate between the different companies. You have the speed. This is how quick the company can deliver. You have the safety. Well, it's basically safety, right? It can affect how the tanks will be delivered in one piece or in several pieces. You have the capacity. That's how much this particular company can handle, how many tanks it can deliver, the price per unit, and the type of transport. Now, the type of the transport, this is something that is linked to the mass of the tank. So if you have a very light vehicles, you can use all different types of the companies. But the more heavier is the tank, the more your choices are limited. So for example, with the heavy tanks, you cannot rely on the tracks. And if the tank gets really heavy, then the only thing you can rely more or less is the ships. So that's kind of mechanics. And then when you're happy, when you find which company you would like to go for, you go up, you sign up, decide how many one, and there you go. You ship it, and you see it's on the way. So this is sort of, again, this is the base of the logistics. We don't want two tanks to be sort of teleported directly to the customer. And yeah, if there is an interest, if there is a request, then we have some ideas how to build this system further and expand on that. When it comes to the raw resources, then it goes along the same lines. So you have a number of resources. Not all of them are available from the start. Some will kind of kick in at a later point in the game. But those that are available, the way for you, to get those is also to deal, in this case, different suppliers. And again, the suppliers, they are directly connected to different host countries. So the better reputation with the host country you get, the more lucrative suppliers you will get with the better conditions for the deals. And when it comes to what they do offer, you see it's kind of reminiscent of the contractors. They have a difference in speed, in safety, how they have different stock of corresponding resource, and they have difference in price. So when you find the one, you go in and you buy, and you see it's on the way. Again, that's the base. I mean, what we know that what's missing is, for example, sort of a cross function between your production needs and your current stock. So you don't really need to sit down and count how many you want to have and how many you should order. So that was going to be done as well. And and also worth to note that, of course, these parameters, they'll be changing with time. So the price will be fluctuating. Different events in the world will be affecting both the demand, the offer, and the safety as well. And of course, your actions. The more countries, the higher is your reputation with the more countries, then the longer will be the list for you to choose, and the more resources will be available for you to scale up your production. So that's here. And then this window that we call overview, this is a typical window that each of the 6 buildings will have. It outlines the performance of this building. It has sort of the usual stuff, and in this case, maintenance, what kind of employees you're using, and so on, and some typical things when it comes to the warehouse activities, the capacity, storage capacity, and how quick you can load or unload things. If you want to affect these attributes, you have 2 ways to do that. You can either go and purchase the upgrades, which each upgrade comes at a certain cost. And after the time has passed, then you gain that sort of particular bonus to boost your building performance. Or you can go the other way, and you can employ and develop what we call administrator, the unique characters that will sort of tag along for some time with you. They can develop with you, and when they develop, they grow in their knowledge. So they gain the perks, and the perks, again, they contribute to the building performance. Now, as I said, I mean, even this piece can be, worked further, but it's important to note that, these administrators, for example, they will not stick with you for the duration of the complete game, right? They'll be there for a certain time period. So they will be changing The perks will be changing, and it will be sort of a dynamical system when you have to see that you are out of the sudden you're not left without administrators. And when they also develop, you have to pick the perks wisely, because they will really grant this good boost to the overall building. Right. So that's the kind of the warehouse in a nutshell.
I just have one question about that. So obviously that's William Ashby Tritton, right? He's a very, very iconic figure, at least to me, because he was important in many parts of engineering in the UK. Is the idea, when it comes to like these figures that you talked about, are you going to keep them all historical figures, or will there be like random elements, like I don't know, random people, or or will they all just be like kind of historical important figures during those time periods?
I think it will be actually a mix. I mean, we have not finally decided this. I mean, there's still discussions going on, but I think it will be a mix, because those kind of iconic guys, like for example, the Triton, right, or Volmer when it comes to Germany and so on, those guys we do want to see in the game. And they will sort of, even if you read the history, it's actually sort of, it is his kind of background, you know. But then we are discussing, we are thinking about that we do want to offer a range of these administrators. So we might come to the point that just relying on the historical figures might not be enough, and then we will have to introduce somewhat fictional ones, right? And then it's a question, okay, where does these fictional ones comes from? One way we can just come up with those, should be no problem. But we are thinking if that can be connected as, you know, sort of presented as, and this is a bit of a sort of, what do you call, not a leak, but we're going a bit forward, but we're thinking if this can be offered as some sort of reward for the high pledges during the Kickstarter.
Oh, you could like have yourself in the game as one of these people, basically.
Yeah, naturally you'll have to be styled correctly, right? You won't be you won't be a guy with a Coca-Cola brand and so on there. But yeah, I mean, why not? But together with us, you work on the background history. Together with us, we decide on the perks that you will be given in the game. And also by supplying the picture, you know, we can shape it in the way that is more fitting to the period that this particular character will appear in the game.
I think that's an awesome idea. Like, I think a lot of people would definitely go for that, if I'm honest with you. I think, like, you know, we talked about before the idea of, I think it was last time we talked about modding or something like that. But I feel like, at least for me, a lot of people, when it comes to like the administrators and stuff, in the sandbox mode you talked about, it would be kind of interesting to have the ability to try and modify them to something that you want. So maybe like some kind of edit tool or something. So you could kind of create your own administrator and then see what you can create from there.
You mean like the perks side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean those kind of modding, I think, is, well, it's not as difficult to do as for example, to allow an introduction of a custom-made tank parts or model. That is completely on a different level of complexity to allow as a modding. So we have to really to think about that one. But this, like adding the stats, that is more like unlocking certain accesses, you know, and allow player to play with it. So yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah. So okay, thank you, William Tritton. We go forward. We go there. Right. Now, production, that's another, I mean, honestly, this can be done as a really separate game in the game. But we go from simple to more complex. So the way the production is handled right now is, I think that's called like, final assembly. So what you do is pretty much like you build up your production queue from the tanks that you have already signed contracts with. You have in this case, you have Mark 1, you have Mark 5. You can see directly how many tanks you have in stock or in the contract, right? You choose how many units you want to produce. You directly, again, calculates the resources, the time needs, assign those those workers, and you go on. And you build the queue by doing that. And again, this is really the place that one can dive, because in reality, when we talk about the production, we think about different assembly lines for different tank components. And the way you place them, the way they're relatively located and so on, should actually affect the outcome. So again, this is the place where it will be really cool to get the feedback. We cannot, of course, promise that this will be directly implemented or will be implemented in demo, but for the long run, for the beta and alpha releases, definitely, because it will be a big investment to expand that to separate assembly lines and allowing the player to really kind of play with that and locate it differently. But it will be interesting to hear what the players think about this, the future players.
Is there going to be on the production line like a visual representation of what you're producing? So let's say, yes, there is. Okay.
Yes. I mean, this is going to be changed to actually, like in the engineering and the design, it will be a 3D environment.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's all I saw the room. It looks actually very much to what you see now, this one, but in the 3D fashion. So it'll be cool. And then when you have the 3D room, what you can do, I think we touched on that a bit last time, then you can really, it's not just you can see the actual tank that you're producing, but you can see it in the different states of being ready. That can be also, I think it's a good element of immersion, that you don't see the tanks that are completely assembled, but you'll see them like, semi-ready or something, or just a hull in the beginning and so on. So there's some place to play with. Right, and then the administration. So that's kind of your office. I guess everything that is not directly to tanks, but is more connected to bookkeeping, that will find its place here. And at the moment, the base activities that you will do here, everything connected to the staff, hiring, firing of the staff, that is here. Your workers, your engineers, employing those administrators, and then also assigning them. Here, for example, you can directly assign them to the building that you would like them to be. What's worth to note here is that not only the administrators will come in a limited numbers, but also the workers and engineers. So that, how many are available will be affected, of course, by, I don't know, the kind of depression, the war crises, and so on. But we generally want to avoid the situation when the player can just fire the staff just before the salary and hire them again. Yeah, like some companies do, I guess. So that we want to eliminate, and you can fire them, of course, but then you can be stuck in a situation when you sign a contract, you need to produce a lot, but you're really short on the hands, on the working hands. So you have to do something about that. And the same goes with engineers. And the second, the second activity, another activity that you have here is a basic accounting. I mean, it feels like, since we're still talking about Tycoon, not only about building the tanks, but Tycoon component, you do want to control your finances. And you can either have it in the monthly or in the annual fashion. And it's really simplified for the time being. So you have the summary of the income. It's all about building and selling tanks. Most of the income will come from the tank sales. Selling Mark 1 to 2 countries, Mark 5 to 2 also. And you also have some side income sources, but this will be really sort of secondary. You can resell your raw resources. You gain some monetary rewards from fulfilling different tasks. And of course, the bank. You cannot do a Tycoon game without the bank. So you can take the loan, the last resort. When it comes to expenses, in the beginning of the game, most of the expenses will be allocated to your factory ground. So you have the maintenance of the buildings, and this maintenance is all going to go up as you upgrade your buildings. So the more advanced your building is, the more it costs. You have the salary for all the 3 groups that you have. Then you have, of course, the cost for the actual upgrades. And you have these fellows. So when you purchase the resources, when you hire the contractors to do the delivery for you, and if you have taken the loan, well, you need to pay it back, right? So it's either the rates or the loan you're paying back. But along the game, so when you continue, you will have a way to expand your company by purchasing something called satellites or holdings from the other countries, if your reputation allows again. And they will sort of offer you certain bonuses, be that to the delivery, to production, to resources, and so on. Of course, they will also require certain maintenance. So the further you expand, the more expenses will be located here. And at some point, I guess it will overweight or starts to be equal to the maintenance of your factory ground. Right. So that's that. And and then as before, you have this overview window as well. So you have typical attributes that all the buildings share, and then you have some unique ones that you can also go on and upgrade by improve your marketing effort, and the administrators, same mechanics there.
So obviously, when it comes to these, obviously the special people, like the administrators, they go up in levels. When it comes to when they hit, I'm guessing the idea is when they hit level 2, they get new perks, right? Like that.
Yes.
Yeah. So will you be able to choose? Will it be an option where, let's say, I'll give you 3 of them and you get to choose one, or will it be randomized?
You will choose.
Okay.
You will choose. So we're actually working on this right now, devising a more detailed perk tree for the administrators, and they will come in different fashion. Of course, they will the perks will be mainly intended to boost the performance of your buildings, but there will be also perks that are more extrovert. So it's on your actions outside of the factory grounds, or maybe even on the other administrators as well. So you'll have to choose, and there will be quite a few to choose from. Right. Then another two options, 2 activities that you can engage from this window is the news and the tasks. So the news, this is a collection of all the important events that are taking place in the game, and they will come in 3 fashion. So the first one will be simply an informal event that informs you that something important has happened. In this case, the research is completed, for example. And then you can either navigate directly to the research lab or just read and so on. Then you will have the events or the news that actually they affect something in the game. They change a bit the mechanics. The example that I usually like to use is with the U-boat and the logistics. I mean, imagine that you get a message that the Germans are starting to employ the U-boats in the World War I. So what it does in return, it affects the safety of all the logistics, of all the contractors that are employing the naval transporting. All of that, all the safety for all the transportation by sea drops, say by 20% or something. That kind of events. And then you have third type events where you are actually represented with a choice, different alternatives to do something, and each will come with its own sort of bonuses and penalties. Say, the typical example, if a country that is that is hostile to your host country asks you to sell something, a tank design or a component or something, and they really offer you a good price for that, but then there's a chance that you might get caught and your reputation with your host country will suffer. So these three types of events and news, they will be present.
Will there be a way to filter between the three sets of news, or will it all just be in one block like it is now?
No. You'll have they will be represented by different icons, and then we'll have a filter to to clean the feed or filter them. Yeah. So that will be there. And then the tasks. So the tasks, it's another game mechanics. Depending on your standing, your reputation with countries, you will have a possibility to accept different tasks. And this is like you have to perform a certain action or gain something or accumulate, consolidate something connected to your sort of tank activities in a sort of limited period of time. If you do this, you get the reward. If you don't, well, you get a penalty. And sometimes it can be just, monetary rewards, so you get money, a pile of cash for this. Sometimes it can be reputation, can be actually resources, characters, or even the pieces of equipment, enemy equipment. So this is another way for you to kind of focus your activity on something and get more or less instantaneous reward for that. Right. I think this is more or less the sort of the base of most of the actions that the player will be able to do on the factory ground. I think that sums it up. We can go now here to the world window, and this is where you you fish for your contracts. This is where you search for the new markets for you to sell tanks. I think, as I mentioned before, in the beginning of the game, there'll be only a few countries that will be open for tanks, but as the time goes by, you'll have more and more flags popping up all around the world, and they will have different needs. They will be sort of engaged in different types of wars and so on. And they will see the tank also differently depending on the doctrine and the application of the doctrine on the battlefield. So it will be up to you to choose whom do you want to side. So if we have a quick look here, so this is the Britain, right? You get a quick description that kind of summarizes what you can expect from this country. Would you like to sort of develop your relation with them or not? In the economy tab, you get a quick feeling of the budget. Do they have money? Will they actually purchase many tanks, little tanks, or they're really low on budget and they will not be buying in huge numbers or relying more on upgrades? When it comes to what we discussed, the resources, each country will be kind of focusing on different groups of resources, and it will have a number of companies that are actually trading that resource. So again, here this is the place where the reputation kicks in. So the better is your reputation, the more of these contractors and suppliers will open up to you. So you'll have more choice and more lucrative choice. Now, reputation, this is something that you earn. So you earn it by the direct actions, selling, signing contracts, fulfilling the tasks, or implicit actions. Let's say if you do sell, a simple example, if you sell tanks to a country that is hostile to Britain, well, you'll experience a drop in reputation, right? If your tanks are not performing well, the same will happen to the reputation of your company as well. Not only reputation of the tank, but also you as a company that is selling them. And reputation sort of gives you an access to, at least at the moment, is 4 levels of reputation, each giving you a sort of an access to be that like a better contracts that featuring more tanks and willing to buy more expensive pieces of equipment. Same goes with the tasks, higher level tasks, and also even what kind of enemy equipment you can purchase from this particular country, and also for the holdings, the one that I described earlier. Right, and then what we have left, well, that's the tank corps and anti-tank corps. So tank corps, that's sort of a general general hub for all the information regarding how this particular country is planning to use tanks, employing them on the battlefield. So doctrine, it's basically describes what kind of tanks this country is currently searching for: light, heavy, medium, focusing on the mobility, or maybe on protection or firepower, or maybe crew components. And there's a second side to the doctrine. That's what we call tactic slots. So each doctrine will have a number of slots or sockets, and they will be filled with the tactics. These tactics will be changing during the course of the game. So the country can have the same doctrine, but the tactics will be being updated, changed, and so on. And each tactic is giving a certain bonuses or penalties on the battlefield. The idea behind this is to emulate countries that were really sound in, very good in using the tanks, like Germans in the Second World War. And then sort of that will be directly reflected in the outcome of the combat, of the tank checks. Say like the Blitzkrieg, right?
Yeah.
And then the second piece of information when it comes to the tank corps is regiments. Now, regiments, they work a bit differently. The way we plan to do it is that each time you get a contract and you fulfill a contract, you actually are not just selling tank to the country in general, but you are equipping a particular regiment with your tanks. And when this regiment, first it's undergoing formation. This is the time when different companies are offering their tanks and trying to get the contract. After the formation is done, the contract is fulfilled and the tanks are delivered, then this regiment starts to have its own life. So this is the way how you can have some sort of continuity in what is actually expected from the tank. So in this case, you see that these two regiments, Company A, Company B, they have been assigned to the World War I Western Front. And this is where they're going to stay for quite a while. And in that particular campaign, they will be sort of traveling from battle to battle. And it is in these battles that the tanks are going to be tested, how well they are, how well suited they are. So they will be suffering losses. At some point, the country might initiate the contract to do a refill, right? On the other hand, if the tanks are showing really lousy performance, the country will create another type of contract that is an upgrade. They don't want to completely replace the tanks, but they want to improve them. And of course, if the performance is really bad, then there will be a contract that completely wants to kind of take away the tank that showed bad performance and purchase something better. That's sort of that's the mechanics of that.
So I'm guessing the anti-tank corps is the opposite then. Like,
yes,
yeah,
with the difference that you don't really, of course, control the anti-tank corps. The difference is that you want to have some understanding of what you are against up. If in your case, let's say Britain is the enemy of your host country, or the enemy of the country that owns your tanks. So by looking at that doctrine and regiments, you can get a better understanding what to prepare for, and hopefully get better luck during the battle checks.
So obviously you said that you, for the main campaign, you're going to stick to kind of historically accurate events, right? Like,
as much as it doesn't go in the conflict with the gameplay, yes.
yeah. So how? Obviously, it matters a lot who you're fighting in these wars, depending on obviously their doctrine and what you're trying to create for, your nation's doctrine against, whomever. When it comes to countries like Italy, with that in the First World War, let's just say switch sides a few times. And then also in the Second World War, there was obviously the armistice, and then there was the two groups after that, one fighting for one side and the other side for the other. How is that going to be simulated in game? Will there be like an event that basically says, okay, now you might have to look at different doctrines because you're fighting different people?
I guess that's exactly how we can do that. I mean, if you take, for example, Germany, right? I think that can be also a good example after the Second World War. I mean, it was split into different countries. You have the West Germany and the East Germany. So one way to do that is to, as you say, you have an event where you actively choose the path, say which Germany you want to follow later on after that sort of bifurcation point. Think along that lines, like that. So you will have to choose whom you deal with, and if we're talking about not a host country, but if we're talking about a country that is your customer, then the easiest way to implement, I mean, think about it. Let's say this is Italy, right? And then the Italy is split sort of for another country that sort of splits into different countries. So you just get another flag there, and that becomes a completely new customer with its own doctrine and its own needs and economy and so on. There are some questions about, okay, so if that new customer originates from the country that you already had a high reputation, what happens with your reputation then? And that can be connected to, on which side this new country is. If it's completely neutral to your previous choices, then you might just inherit the same reputation. But if this new country is signing, let's say, with the Germany during the World War I, but you are playing for the Great Britain, then you'll see a reduction in your reputation as a function of time. This mechanism is relatively simple to implement.
Okay. That sounds fun.
I hope so. That's all what the games are about. Be fun at the end of the day. So yeah, sign up with this guy. And
he's a fun guy.
Yeah. So I think actually we covered things that we wanted for today, and for the next time, what is actually left, what we haven't showed so far, that is really what will happen on the battlefield, how that is going to be implemented, what is the tactical map, how your tanks and those /regiments will fit in the tactical map, and also how will you as a player actually experience the battle checks. That is for the next round.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who are very interested in that. Because I mean, at least from my point of view, that's like kind of the, what do you call it, like the catalyst element that I don't think I've ever seen anymore before in like a game like this.
Yeah, and to make our work not really easy, there's a lot of expectation coming from the world of tanks, and fans or War Thunder fans that have really the first-hand experience of driving and shooting. So that kind of puts certain constraints and certain expectation on us. But yeah, we'll see. We'll do our best.
Oh,
to
wait, you're
face
thinking about adding, like, basically player-controlled stuff? So not just simulated?
No, play control, we said very early that we will not add, because then we are really going to the direction competing with those two games, and that's really not our intention. No. But to make it at least, to make it fun, to make it interesting for the player, that's what our aim is.
Yeah, that
Right.
makes sense. Yeah, the one last thing is, so when it comes to the warehouse stuff, obviously this is obviously, you know, before even the demo's completed and everything. Is there going to be more visual representations of what you're actually doing? So when, let's say you pick a specific company to deliver the tanks, e.g., I saw there was like a ship icon for one of the things. Will there be a visual representation, whether on the map or in a screen or something, that the item has been shipped, or, you know, something like that? Or will it, is there going to be, is it all just going to be like basically text-based that we see here, or is there going to be more, I don't know, audio cues and video cues or image cues and stuff like that?
Well, this is exactly the feedback that we were talking about from the beginning, right? That you can play with this and bring more depth. What I can say for sure is that the warehouse, together with the production, and most likely with the research as well, they will be also done in 3D. That means that we will get flexibility to add, you know, dynamically add objects and even animations. And that, of course, kind of, this is the tool that you use if you want to show visual difference, you know, to your choices when it comes to the contractors or the suppliers and so on. If we will actually going to go to do that, we'll see. It depends. If that is really something that community wants and we see how we can do it in a feasible way, then definitely we'll do this.
Yeah, because at least for me, it's something just like a pop-up. You know how you're talking about like the news stuff before, where you would have like a thing saying this technology is research, like something just a pop-up saying, I don't know, your ship has sailed, and then a foghorn or something like that. Yeah, I just that's basically what I was thinking of, just some kind of visual cue. But I'll make sure to try and get as much feedback as possible.
Perfect.
To see how in depth people want this stuff, because that's really the thing, right? Like how much information that you want, you know, like what level of information people are comfortable with. Is that what you're basically looking for, or just how it's represented?
Exactly. Do you just want it to have the way that it's sort of we showed now, and then focus maybe on more tank components, more battles, and more directly tank connected game elements, or actually the kind of the Tycoon components are also of interest and really are sought by the players, and therefore we should go that path as well. So that is interesting to know from the feedback, really.
I'd just like to thank Trigger Hippie, Universe, Conte Baraka, Elove Goat, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Hans, and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.